The Radio Forest Podcast.
Hello, Colin. How are you?
Hi, how you doing?
Doing great. Guess where I am? I'm in Boise, Idaho. The zombies have a connection to Boise.
They certainly do. Odyssey and Oracle had been released. It went through so many hurdles, Odyssey and Oracle. It nearly wasn't released if it wasn't for Al Cooper from Blood, Sweat and Tears, but he went on to be a producer at CBS, and he picked up this album, Odyssey and Oracle, in London, brought it to CBS, took it to Clive Davis, the head of CBS, and pressured him into releasing the album. But still nothing much was happening with the album or the first couple of singles that were released. And then they released a single called Time of the Season, and a DJ in Boise, Idaho would not stop playing that single. And over a period of time, and I think things could happen that way then, I'm not sure if it still could, there was a sort of a ripple effect. He kept playing it, and it went out to other DJs in the next town and then the next state, and suddenly we'd got an airplay hit, which then turned into sales. This happened over a period of many months, and because of that DJ in Boise, Idaho, the single was #1 in Cashbox and #2 or #3 in Billboard. So we certainly do have a connection with Boise, Idaho, and we're eternally grateful for his support.
What were you doing when it became a hit? Because the band's done. Did you start working for the music industry? Because I know you've had a couple of different jobs throughout the Zombies' career in your life.
Well, absolutely. For one reason or another, particularly the non-writers in the band, it's kind of a long story how we ended up with absolutely no money. But it's a story that's happened very frequently in the 60s. It's not just the Zombies. Many of the household name bands from the 60s ended up penniless, and we were no different. And to be absolutely honest, I had to get a job, and I took the first job I was offered, which was in an office right in the center of London, which had nothing to do with music. And the interesting thing for me is on the first day, I knew nothing about what they did. And I just think back in absolute horror that I had to take that first phone call. And I had no idea what I was talking about. He called me and asked me, it was about insurance. And I don't know what they said. I can't remember now, but I wouldn't have known the answer. So it was a good thing that I'd had a few years on stage, learning to act out a part a little bit, because that's what I had to do in that office. It was an interesting experience, but it helped me get over the disappointment of the Zombies finishing, because it was a very busy office and I didn't have time to dwell on the sadness of what had happened in the Zombies' career.
Yeah, we're talking to Colin Blunstone from the Zombies. They've got that new record, Different Game, plus a documentary coming. And Colin, it's a huge honor. You've been to Abbey Road, and not just once. You've been there a couple of times. And the first time, if I'm correct, was right around the time that the Beatles had still been there. There's things left behind in the studios that you guys might pick up and put on a record.
Absolutely. In 1967, when we finished our last album, we were in Abbey Road a couple of days after the Beatles left, having completed Sgt. Pepper. And John Lennon had left his Mellotron behind, which Rod, who's the keyboard player in the Zombies, used all the way through Odyssey and Oracle and on Time of the Season. It was just there, so he used it. The album would have been a totally different album if they hadn't left that behind, but they'd also left lots of percussion instruments around on the floor, tambourines and maracas and this sort of thing. And I was as big a fan of the Beatles as anyone, so to be picking these instruments up a couple of days after they've actually been recording, it was a really exciting experience. And of course, being in Abbey Road's a wonderful experience as well. And I've recorded there many times with Alan Parsons. I've done 3 solo albums in there, and it's a wonderful studio.
What about the new album? Where'd you guys record that, and how did that come together? I know you started prior to COVID, so was this done in the studio together, or did you do parts like most people are doing these days?
No, we didn't do it in different studios. We recorded actually our last album in what you would think of as the old-fashioned way, where we're all in the studio together. And we were very keen that on this album, A Different Game, we would all be in the studio together. So when the pandemic came, we had to just put it on ice. And I know that Rod got on and wrote a lot of the songs for the album during that period. Yeah, we just had to wait until it was safe to travel again, particularly because our new bass player is Danish, and he had to come from Copenhagen. And of course, when in the pandemic, he couldn't travel. We all got together at Rod Argent's studio, which is southwest of London, about 2 hours southwest of London. And we were all in the room together recording. You could almost say it's like a live album that's recorded in a studio environment. So all of the music was recorded live, and the vocals too. The vocals are recorded live. I think maybe some of the solos and all of the vocal harmonies will have been recorded separately, but we just find there's an energy in the studio when we're all together, and you play in a slightly different way. If the band's responding to me singing, I'm responding to them playing, it is just a different environment.
Now, did you ever have a chance to talk to Tom Petty? He was the biggest fan of the Zombies. He talked about you guys all the time. Did you ever bump into him or have a chance to sit down with him?
Absolutely. He came to many of our gigs. And when we were in Los Angeles once, he had a radio program of his own, which he recorded in his studio at home. And Rod and I went and spent the afternoon with him in his studio, in his house, in Malibu, actually. And it was a wonderful experience. He's a lovely guy, really, really smashing bloke. And of course, a great musician.
Yeah. One more person I want to know if you've run into or talked to. What about the guys from ZZ Top? Did you ever talk to them about how, hey, you guys aren't the Zombies, we're the Zombies? And can you kind of tell that story quickly for people that might not know?
Okay, well, when the Zombies had their last hit time of the season, there was no band. So it created a bit of a vacuum, and the music business hates a vacuum. So they like to fill it. So there were three bands going around saying that they were the Zombies. And in one of these bands, there were a couple of guys that went on to be ZZ Top that were in this band. Yeah. And listen, I just say good luck, because we weren't using the name. And I want to see musicians employed, and so good luck if they could get some dates out of being the Zombies. I don't have a problem with that.
And you also, I know you guys were pretty big Elvis fans, and I know you got to go to Graceland, but the King wasn't there, but you still got to kind of hang around his house and look at a couple of things.
We absolutely did. We never quite, because we were talking to a DJ, and it's very strange. At the end of the interview, he said, "Hey, shall we go and hang out with Elvis for a bit?" And I thought we might have heard what he said wrong, but he didn't have any security around him at that time. This DJ took us to Graceland, and we just opened those big gates and walked up to the front door. And we knocked on the front door, and we're not absolutely sure if it was his father. Vernon, I think, was his father, wasn't it, or his uncle who was there at the time. But an older gentleman said, such a shame. Elvis is filming in Hawaii. He would have loved to have met you, but as he's not here, guys, if you just want to have a look around and just hang out, then that's fine. They were extremely friendly and welcoming. And yeah, I mean, I would have liked to have met Elvis, but just in itself, just wandering around Graceland was a great experience. And I was just so amazed how easy it was to knock on his front door.
That would never happen today. That's amazing.
I know. We literally just walked up the drive, knocked on the door, and were welcomed.
Yeah, and reportedly your music on Elvis's jukebox. So at some point he's having a couple of drinks in his house by himself, listening to the Zombies, probably. That's awesome.
It's a wonderful thought, isn't it? We did hear it on good authority, but obviously we didn't hear it from Elvis himself. But we did hear it on good authority that he had a couple of our tracks on his jukebox. So it's a wonderful thought.
Hey, I just want to give you kudos for your voice. I mean, to be a lead singer your entire career is an amazing accomplishment. Guitarists and drummers and stuff don't change as much as the voice does. I think it sounds amazing. It has changed. And I think you've rolled with it on a different game, the new album coming out. Is it hard? Do you have to write stuff differently, or you just do what you do and what comes out comes out?
Well, in the first place, it was certainly with regard to recording with the Zombies. Rod all his life has written songs for my voice, and these songs are written specifically for me. And he would often say he learned to writing for my voice, and it's true of me. I learned to sing professionally, singing to Rod's songs. So there is a real connection with us there. We've spent a lifetime working together. But I think as you get older, you do have to protect your voice a little bit. When you're in your teens and your 20s, you can probably just sing with the voice that you were given. As you get older, well, what Rod and I did, we studied with a singing coach, and we just learned a little bit of singing technique. And he also gave us both a set of singing exercises, which when we're on the road, I do those exercises twice a day. So I do half an hour before sound check and half an hour before the show. So before you would see me in a concert, I will have been doing singing exercises for an hour. And that helps to keep my voice strong and helps to keep my voice fairly accurate. So it's so important. As you get older, as you rightly said, your voice does change. But I've been lucky that my range has stayed the same. So I can still hit those top notes. All the songs that we perform them in the original keys. None of them have been altered at all. So in that respect, I'm just fortunate that I've kept the range in my voice.
Well, it's a new documentary premiering at South by Southwest. Colin Blunstone from the Zombies, Different Game, out March 31st. It's an honor to talk to you, Colin. Thank you for your time today from Boise, Idaho.
Thank you so much. It's been great talking to you. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
Bye. Cheers.